Good morning, Grace Lutheran Church and School. It's Maundy, Thursday. It comes from a Latin term mandatum, which means command. And today we have several lessons. The first is called the Last Supper. On Thursday, the day before the Passover, Jesus sent Peter and John into the city saying, "Meet a man carrying a pitcher of water. Follow him to his house and say, 'The master asks, where is the guest chamber where I shall eat the Passover with my disciples? He will show you a large upper room. There make ready for us.' The disciples went and did as he had said, and in the evening, Jesus sat at supper with them. But the disciples had again been quarreling as to who was the greatest among them, and should therefore sit nearest to him. Jesus from the table. He poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet. Peter protested, "Lord, do you wash my feet? And if I do not wash you, you have nothing in common with me," Jesus said. "Lord, not my feet, then but my hands and my head." We continue with the question the disciples were asked at the meal, "Is it I?" After Jesus had sat down again, he said, "Do you realize what I've done? You call me Master and Lord, and I have washed your feet. In this I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. The servant is not greater than his Lord." Peter, unable to hear the suspense, signaled to John, the disciple whom Jesus loved, to ask him who it is. John leaned his head back. He whispered, "Lord, who is it?" "One to whom I give the sop or piece of bread," answered Jesus. Then he gave them each in turn a piece of bread dipped in a dish of herbs. There was silence for a moment. The disciples began to feel very ashamed. Then he spoke words which cut to their hearts. "One of you will betray me." They looked to one another, wondering of whom he spoke, and each of them said to himself, "Is it I? Is it I?" Still some of them knew, but John afterwards remembered that he gave first to Judas Iscariot. "What you are going to do quickly," Jesus said to Judas. They thought Jesus was telling Judas, who looked after their money, to go and buy the food they needed. Judas went out immediately, and it was night. So Judas has left the disciples to betray Jesus. And if you read those accounts in John, you'll see that Judas is the only one who calls Jesus Rabbi. And he does that in the upper room, and he does that when he betrays Jesus. Now our Lord will celebrate his last will and testament, the Lord's Supper. And so they were eating. Jesus took the bread and the wine, and he gave thanks, and he blessed them. He broke the bread in pieces and gave it to the disciples. "Take and eat." He said, "This is my body, which is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me." And he took the cup and gave it to them, saying, "Drink, all of you. This cup is a new covenant in my blood, which is shed for you for the remission of sins. Drink in remembrance of me, for I shall not drink with you again until I do so in my Father's kingdom. You have stood loyally by me in my trials. Now I assign you power to rule, just as my Father has given me. You may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom." And when they had sung a song, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Jesus now will go to the Garden of Gethsemane. Crossing the brook Kidron, they climbed up to the Mount of Olives, to a garden called Gethsemane. Inside the gate, Jesus left most of his disciples, saying, "Sit here while I go over there to pray." Then with Peter, James, and John, Jesus went on deeper into the darkness of the garden, and as he did so, began to be full of terror and perplexity and anxiety. He turned to the three, saying, "My heart is full of deadly sorrow. Stay here, watch with me." Then he went on about a stone's throw and fell on the ground, and he prayed, "Oh, my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what thou will be done." And an angel appeared and strengthened him. Being in an agony, Jesus prayed even more intensely, and his sweat was like great drops of blood falling down to the ground. Then he arose from prayer. He found the three disciples asleep. Jesus said to Peter as he awoke, "Were you not strong enough to watch with me 1 hour? Then to them all, be on your guard so that you do not fall into temptation. Your spirit indeed is willing, but your flesh is weak." A second and yet a third time he prayed, "Oh, my Father, if this cup may not pass away from me unless I drink it, thy will be done." Again, the heavy-eyed disciples were asleep. Jesus woke them. "Rise up," he said, "the hour has come. He who betrays me is coming." As he spoke, the temple officers, led by Judas Iscariot, came towards them. Now Judas had agreed on a signal with the officers that the man whom he kissed was to be arrested. He kissed Jesus. As he did so, he said, "Master." Jesus said to Judas, "Do you betray the Son of Man with a kiss?" As the temple guard seized Jesus, Peter drew his sword, struck at the high priest's servant, Malchus, and cut off his right ear. Jesus commanded Peter, "Put up your sword. My Father could send me 12 legions of angels. But how then should the scriptures be fulfilled that this must be?" And he healed Malchus' ear. Jesus turned to the chief priests of the temple officers. "Do you come out armed with clubs and swords to take me as though I were a thief? I taught daily in the temple, but you never attempted to arrest me there. But this is your hour of triumph, and the writings of the prophets must be fulfilled." Then all the angels forsook him, and they fled. So far, the text for Holy Thursday.